Hi, this is Sean McNamara from Mind Possible, and if you've seen my other videos, you've watched me move things like paper and tinfoil or natural leaves with telekinesis or even toothpicks. In this series of 3 videos, you're going to watch me move gold, silver, and copper. It was a great suggestion given to me a few weeks ago, and I finally received the metals in the mail, and I was able to turn them into targets that I could use for telekinesis. Now, one good thing about these videos is that it's important to research what kind of elements we can work with that might help us explain how this phenomena occurs. How, with my intention and my breathing and relaxation, can I, standing across a room, make something move, even through glass? So do different types of metal matter? Or is it about the air in the container? Is the air pushing the object? There are a lot of considerations. There's so many questions that I don't have the answer to. But a more interesting aspect of this research is that what if someday we could find a way to connect our consciousness to a natural element that made it more possible for us to affect technology with our intention? So we're getting really close with remote control devices, but imagine if using your intention you could operate machinery or a vehicle of some type. If your intention could close an electrical circuit or cause some sort of other effect in machinery, that could be the start of something really wonderful and powerful for the human race. So it's another interesting aspect to think about with this work. These videos do go a long time, so you might want to pause here and grab a coffee or a drink and make a sandwich or something. All in all, they're about 25 minutes long. Also, if this is your first time watching me do telekinesis and you haven't seen my other videos, you might want to go to my YouTube channel and go to my playlists and look at the one called For Skeptics to Consider. And I'm not meaning to insult you, I'm just saying this set of videos has a lot of information that'll answer some of the questions that you may have, because in the first 2 minutes you'll have a lot of questions, you might have a lot of doubts about what you see with your own eyes. If you can watch all 3 videos completely without judging and just observing, you'll learn a lot and you might answer some of your own questions. But most importantly, perhaps, I hope this really inspires other telekinesis practitioners, especially the next generation, to try new things. Don't just do what I do, but keep experimenting, and whatever you have to learn and share with the rest of the human race will be really valuable going forward. So thanks for watching. Now let's get started. This is pure gold foil. It's so thin it falls apart so easily, so it's actually difficult to work with. Here's my first try at making a target with it. Turned out to be a mess. But this is what I used, the paper that it came wrapped in, which is very light. It's about the same size as the tinfoil I normally use, and we can see here that it weighs just 0.05 grams. So I took the paper, sprayed it, and then stuck it onto the gold to give it a little bit more resiliency. And altogether we see that it weighs about 0.11 grams. The silver came out to 0.10 grams. And this is the copper. It's so beautiful. And this piece came out to, let's see here, 0.11 grams also. So to compare, here's a piece of tinfoil, 0.17. And we can see here that, look at the gold, it just is so soft, it bends under its own weight compared to the other 2 pieces of metal. So now we're looking at the gold, and this is sped up. And this is the first time I've worked with any of these materials. I did all these videos on the same day, just so we get the same level of energy coming from me and level of experience. So this is my first time. And we see with the gold, it took me about 5 minutes of working on it before any movement occurred. So that's good information to have. It took 5 minutes trying it with my hands on the glass and a little bit off the glass. And here's some really nice movement. Now my hands are off the glass. And okay, I sped it back up again, and I'm trying to speed it up so this video doesn't get too boring, but I still want you to get a sense of the movement, especially for beginners. So we see here I'm trying to do it now with my hands in my lap at 11 minutes. We've got some movement happening. This is what I call level 4 in my first book, Defy Your Limits. At the end of the book you learn how to do this, how to move something with your hands in your lap. So still moving at 13 minutes, and then we speed it up again. And then I decided to stop at that point and try silver. So I got my hands on it, and it moved almost immediately with my hands on the glass, then taking my hands off the glass, putting them back on. It was a few more seconds before it moved again. And I think it was about 30 seconds that it took for it to move. So it moved a lot faster than the gold did. And we see the actual speed here with my hands touching the glass. And I really like to do both, because with the hands on the glass, there's too much question there about, am I heating up the air inside the container? But here my hands are off and the silver is still moving. And when it slows down, I don't make that many comments. Sometimes it's just a time to watch, and I just want you to experience what it's really like with these experiments, that there's a lot of patience required. It gets pretty boring, I understand, for the viewer, but when you're doing it, it's really interesting. Part of it is just I'm taking time to feel what's inside my body, how my mind is feeling, relaxing everything, and applying the technique. Now, again, my hands are in my lap, and getting the silver to keep moving. I slowed it down to actual speed so you can see what it really looks like in actual speed. Pretty soon we're going to move to copper, but I just wanted to let this play out until I get tired. So I gave this almost 8 minutes before I decided to switch to using copper. So here's the copper, and we see it started moving right away. And this happens sometimes when I work with tin foil, especially when it's the same piece I've been using for a while. It'll respond right away. So it's interesting to me that my first time with this piece of copper foil, that it started responding almost as soon as I sat down in front of it. And now it seems to have, oh no, it's still moving. Okay. And my hands have barely been on the glass, mostly off the glass. See, it's speeding up now. A lot of this is just me tuning in. Could we say that there's a big difference between the copper, silver, and gold at this point? I don't think so. Because it could just be me settling into the practice. Since I made all these videos back to back, part of it's me getting over my nervousness of being in front of the cameras again, thinking about what people will think about these videos, and all of that stress comes along every time I shoot a video, and I have to learn to let it go and relax every time. So maybe I'm just more comfortable this far into the day of shooting these videos. So here we see I put my hands on my lap and took a little bit of time, but the object has started moving again. And then we're going to speed it up a little bit so you don't get too bored. Now, one thing that's interesting to note in all these videos is right now we see that silver responded really well, and copper also did pretty well, and gold may have been the slowest. But this won't always be the case in the rest of the experiments in these 3 videos that are part of this series. Sometimes one element behaves differently in one session and very differently in the next session. So here I've got all 3 targets under one glass container, and I'm trying to get them all to move at the same time. Let's see which ones respond the best. I've got my hands on the glass, but I will also try with my hands just off the glass. I'm just trying to get everything kick-started here, and it seems the silver responded a little bit, and as I take my hands off, the gold really responds, and the silver still responded a little bit. It's just interesting to me. And we could ask, is it because the gold is closest to my body? Is it receiving most of the energy coming off of my body? We'll see things later on that undo that theory about proximity. We're just gathering preliminary data at this stage. And I decide to move to a different angle to see if that has anything to do with it. If it's proximity to my body, will the silver respond first? Oh, and we get a strong response from silver. But copper started responding, and gold still responds. Now copper is furthest away from me, but it was really responding really strongly. Now here I am, and silver is responding, but I'm back in my original position. And the copper was wiggling a little bit there. Let me see what happens when my hand's completely off the table. And changing position again. So I'm just experimenting in different ways, and I think that's another important thing about these videos is you get to see the behind the scenes of what a telekinesis practitioner does to try and get things going. It's all experimentation. So I gave up there. I was getting a little tired, and I thought, I'll see what happens when I stack them. And first I stacked them with the gold on top and see if I have any success. And after a while, I'll switch it up. So eventually we'll have the silver on top and then the copper on top. And now it's been 2 minutes in and no movement. Now there's a little bit of movement, almost 3 minutes in. As I take my hands off the glass, let's see if any movement goes on. It's barely perceptible, but there's a little movement there. Now I have one theory why this might not be responding so well. It's because gold is so soft that it could be acting like a suspension system. That if there's any energy being sent to the whole setup, that the gold could be bending or vibrating with the energy, keeping it from moving as much as the stiffer metals would respond. Sort of like the difference between a mountain bike and a road bike. The road bike is built to move very quickly, so it doesn't allow for any absorption of energy, whereas a mountain bike does. It moves a lot and it can receive a lot of energy without bouncing everywhere. Okay, so now I switched it out for silver, and we see that that's responding pretty well initially. And here with hands in my lap, it's responding really well, so that's great information. Then I decided to just go on to copper, and copper is the most stiff of the metals, so if my theory holds true, what I was just saying about gold, then this would move the most because it wouldn't fold or bend so much because of the energy. But actually, I ended it right there because the copper didn't move the rest of the time, so that theory goes out the window. Okay, that's the end of this video. Go on to part 2 and we'll see me moving these objects from across the room.